Think you know Ford muscle cars? Think again. Beyond the Mustang, Ford secretly built 6 high-powered machines so wild they had to shut them down. Engines built for war, bodies made for speed. Some were banned, others were buried, and now we're bringing them back. These are the 6 muscle monsters Ford hoped you'd never see again.
Number 6, absolutely. The 1966 Ford Galaxy 7-liter is one of those hidden gems of the muscle car era. A full-size luxury coupe packing serious firepower. It was a one-year-only special designed to blend the elegance of Ford's upper-tier Galaxy line with raw muscle straight from the NASCAR playbook. The gentleman's muscle car with NASCAR genes. In the mid-1960s, Ford was deeply involved in NASCAR and muscle car wars. While the Mustang grabbed headlines in the pony car segment, Ford also had big ambitions for its full-size lineup. The Galaxy had already been a dominant force in stock car racing, and in 1966, Ford dropped the hammer with the 7-liter model, a fusion of luxury and brutal power. The name 7-liter came from the engine displacement, 7.0 liters, or 428 cubic inches. It was Ford's way of saying, this isn't just another Galaxy. Engine, 428 cubic inches, 7.0 liters. FE Series 5, 8 horsepower, 345 horsepower at 4,600 revolutions per minute. Torque, 462 pound-feet at 460 revolutions per minute. 2,800 RPM transmission. 3-speed cruise, O-matic automatic standard, optional 4-speed manual, 0 to 60 miles per hour, approximately 7.0 seconds quarter mile. Low 15-second range. Top speed, approximately 125 plus miles per hour. Curb weight, approximately 4,200 pounds. Despite its size, the 7-liter was surprisingly quick, especially with the 4-speed and optional axle ratios. The 428 was a new engine for 1966, replacing the old 427 in some applications. While it wasn't a high RPM screamer like the 427, it was a torque monster, perfect for street performance and smooth acceleration. The engine had a 4-barrel carburetor, dual exhaust, and special camshaft. Notably, it wasn't built to be a track car. It was a high-speed cruiser with muscle. The 7-liter was based on the Galaxy 500 XL, Ford's top luxury coupe judge convertible. Exterior highlights, unique 7-liter badging on the fenders, special grille and rear panel trim. Dual exhaust tips available as a 2-door hardtop or convertible. Long, sleek, fastback roofline, styled by Ford's Gene Bordenat. Interior luxury, bucket seats with a center console, rare in full-size cars. Optional power seats, power windows, AC, tilt steering, 7-liter only interior trim, and badging deluxe steering wheel and instrument cluster. It was both a gentleman's car and a muscle machine. Think Thunderbird speed with Galaxy size. Model units produced 7-liter hardtop. Coupe approximately 11,000 7-liter convertible, approximately 2,400 total, approximately 13,500. That makes the 7-liter a one-year-only special, which is now highly collectible, especially the 4-speed convertibles, of which fewer than 250 were made. The 7-liter was Ford's top full-size performance offering in 1966. It sat above the Galaxy 500 XL in prestige. It was a direct competitor to the Chevrolet Impala SS 427 and Pontiac Grand Prix 421 HO. It was one of the few full-size cars to offer a factory 4-speed manual with a console shifter. The 428 engine would later evolve into the Cobra jet found in the Mustang Mach-1. There was no 7-liter in 1967. Instead, Ford offered the 428 as an option in 1967 other models, making the 1966 version unique. Condition estimated value showroom, Shermint $55,000 to $80,000 clean driver, $30,000 to $45,000 project, car $10,000 to $20,000, 4-speed convertible, $85,000 plus rare, 1 7-liter convertible was used as a press test car in 1966, and it reportedly ran circles around the Mustang GTs during media events. Test drivers were shocked that this huge plush convertible could break into the 15-second quarter-mile range with the top down and 3 people in the car. Big block 428 torque in a luxury package. 1 year only production equals collector status. 4-speed manual available, exclamation mark imposing, stylish presence. A true bridge between full-size cruisers and muscle cars, heavier and softer than mid-size muscle. No high RPM performance like the 427, mostly forgotten after 1966. 7-liter name wasn't repeated, a branding oddity. The 1966 7-liter was Ford's brief moment of clarity, a factory hot rod for the gentleman racer. It didn't shout, but it could roar. Number 5, the 1971 Mercury Cyclone, spoiler 429 SCJ, one of the last true muscle-bound monsters of the golden era and one of the most underrated. While the Mustang, GTO, and Charger were hogging the spotlight, this beast lurked in the shadows, packing more muscle than most of them dared to dream of. Let's break it down. The last of the NASCAR-worthy street warriors. Mercury, Ford's mid-tier luxury performance brand, was often overlooked in the muscle car conversation. But in the late 60s and early 70s, Mercury had racing on the brain. The Cyclone was their full-size fastback muscle machine, especially aimed at NASCAR homologation. By 1971, the writing was on the wall for muscle cars. Emissions, insurance hikes, and gas prices were all looming, so Ford went out with a bang, stuffing the 429 Super Cobra Jet SCJ into a limited number of Cyclone spoilers. The spoiler was the top trim in the Cyclone performance lineup. It featured NASCAR-style aerodynamic front nose, high-back rear spoiler, special graphics, stripes, and badging, heavy-duty suspension optional, 429 Super Cobra Jet powertrain. It was built to go fast in a straight line and stick at high speed. Traits borrowed straight from Mercury's stock car racing program. Engine, 429 cubic inches, 7.0 liters. Super Cobra Jet V8 horsepower, 375 horsepower at 5,400 RPM, underrated. Torque, 450 pound-feet at 580 RPM, 3,400 RPM compression ratio, 11.3 to 1 induction, Holley 780 CFM 4-barrel carb block, D1VE cast iron, transmission, standard, 4-speed top-loader manual, optional C6 3-speed automatic, differential 3.91 or 4.11 rear gears with Detroit locker 0 to 60 miles per hour, 5.5 to 6.0 seconds 1/4 mile, approximately 13.8 seconds at 103 plus miles per hour, top speed approximately 130 plus miles per hour. Right arrow ram, air, and oil cooler came standard with the SCJ. The engine was built for high-stress, high RPM drag strip and NASCAR-level endurance. The SCJ package was more than just extra horsepower. It included solid lifter camshaft, higher RPM capability, nodular iron crankshaft, forged pistons, engine oil cooler, Detroit locker rear end, bulletproof, ram air shaker, hood scoop. Essentially, it turned the Cyclone into a street-legal race car. Feature description: nose cone aerodynamic fiberglass, front end like the Tallaladega, spoiler raised rear wing, functional at high speeds, shaker hood functional ram, air scoop interior bucket seats, console, sport steering wheel, rally gauges, wheels hotshot tire, Magnum 500s with Goodyear polyglass, F60-15S. The 1971 Cyclone spoiler looked aggressive and slippery. Not cartoonish like some muscle cars, but seriously mean. Model units produced the Cyclone spoiler 1,857 total, with 429 SCJ, drag pack, approximately 353 estimated, with 4-speed manual fewer than 150, that makes the 1971 Cyclone spoiler 429 SCJ rarer than a Boss 429 Mustang, and nearly unknown to most casual enthusiasts. The 429 SCJ engine was originally built for NASCAR homologation. Ford was shifting away from performance by 1971. making these cars the last hurrah. Many SCJ Cyclones were drag raced, leading to low survival rates today. The same 429 SCJ power plant was found in the 1971 Torino Cobra, but the Cyclone version got unique trim and aero bits. The car was longer and heavier than most muscle cars, but straight-line speed was no issue. Condition price estimate showroom $80,000 to $110,000. Good driver $45,000 to $70,000. Project $25,000 to $35,000. With 4-speed and drag pack $120,000 plus. These are climbing in value quickly because of their rarity, performance, and racing heritage. One Cyclone SCJ owner reportedly took on a 426 Hemi-Charger in a drag race in the mid-70s. Despite being heavier and less hyped, the Cyclone ran a 13.5-second quarter mile on street tires and pulled ahead by car lengths. The Hemi driver, stunned, said, "What the hell is that? A Mercury?" True NASCAR Roots 429 SCJ equals Ford's most powerful big block. Super rare and underappreciated killer aero design and shaker hood could take on Hemis, LS6s, and Boss 429s. Mercury branding equals less performance cred. Overshadowed by Mustang and Torino. 1971 was the end of the horsepower era, expensive and complex to restore heavier than mid-size muscle rivals. The Cyclone spoiler SCJ wasn't just Mercury's secret weapon. It was one of Ford's best-kept muscle car secrets, period. Built to rule the high-speed ovals, unleashed on the streets. Number 6, absolutely. The 1972 Ford Grand Torino Sport 429 is a fascinating mix of brawn, bold styling, and bittersweet timing. It arrived at the tail end of the muscle car era, a time when horsepower was being strangled by emissions regulations and insurance crackdowns. Yet it still managed to deliver serious street cred and attitude. Let's dig into this overlooked muscle luxe monster. A fastback with muscle, swagger, and the last big block roar. By 1972, Ford's Torino line had been redesigned with a bold new Coke bottle look. Long hood, fastback roofline, and flared fenders. The Gran Torino Sport was the performance version, offered as a 2-door sports roof or hardtop. Ford had just phased out the Fairlane name, making Gran Torino the new flagship mid-size, replacing cars like the 1971 Torino Cobra. The Sport model was the spiritual successor to the Cobra and GT, but by now, muscle car madness was beginning to fade. Still, Ford gave enthusiasts one last chance at muscle with the 429 cubic inch big block V8. The big news for 1972, Gran Torino Sport, was that you could still order a 429 cubic inch V8 even as most rivals were downsizing. Engine horsepower, SAE net. Torque notes 429-4V, Thunderjet, 205 horsepower at 4,400 RPM, 320 pound-feet at 2,800 RPM emissions. Choked version of the 429,351 Cleveland 5.8s, 163 to 266 horsepower. Various more common 400 V8 and 170 horsepower. 315 pound-feet smog-era filler. Note horsepower was now measured in net ratings after accessories, making the numbers appear lower than previous years. Despite the drop in power figures, the 429 still had serious torque and street presence. It wasn't the brutal Cobra jet of old, but it could move the 4,000-pound Torino with authority. 0-60 mph, approximately 7.5 seconds, depends on gearing. 1-4 mile, mid to high 15 seconds. Top speed 115 to 120 miles per hour, governed by gearing emissions. Transmission, 3-speed automatic C6, optional 4-speed manual, very rare in 72. With optional performance axle ratios, like 3.25 or 3.50 to 1, and dual exhaust, the car still had respectable street performance. Body-on-frame construction, front, independent suspension with coil springs, rear, leaf spring, solid axle, front disc brakes, standard rear drums. Weight approximately 3,900 to 4,200 pounds depending on options. It was more of a muscle cruiser than a corner carver. The big block made it fun in a straight line, but handling was typical of the era. floaty but confident. Ford leaned hard into aggressive design in 1972. The Gran Torino Sport had fastback sports roof, designed with dramatic body sculpting, unique egg crate grille, and wide stance, bold GT-style stripes, optional, color-keyed racing mirrors, optional Magnum 500 wheels, optional shaker hood scoop for the 429. The long hood and tucked-in rear made the car look fast even when parked. You might recognize this style from the 1974 Gran Torino, driven in Starsky and Hutch. It started here. Optional bucket seats with console or bench rally instrument cluster with tachometer AM/FM 8-track stereo. Optional power windows, AC, tilt wheel, vinyl wood grain, dash and trim. It was more luxurious than earlier muscle cars, which is why the Sport badge reflected a GT luxury muscle blend. Model units 1972. Gran Torino Sport, all engines, approximately 92,000 with 429 V8, estimated approximately 6,500 to 7,429 plus 4-speed combo. Extremely rare, hundreds at most. Finding a 429 Gran Torino Sport with a 4-speed is like spotting a unicorn today. The 429 in 1972 was not a Cobra jet, just the milder Thunderjet. 1972 was the last year for the 429 in a midsize Ford. The Coke bottle shape was so distinctive, it became an icon of 70s car design. Ford would shift focus to the Gran Torino Elite in personal luxury by 1974. NASCAR drivers like David Pearson drove Torino-based cars with success in early 70s. Condition estimated price. Mint show car $45,000 to $65,000. Good driver $25,000 to $40,000 project. Car $10,000 to $18,000. Rare 429 plus 4-speed $70,000 plus, if documented. A restored 72 Gran Torino Sport. 429 was once pitted against a 440 Magnum Charger in a friendly drag race at a muscle car meet. While the Charger edged it out, the Torino surprised everyone with its deep growl and relentless pull, especially after 40 miles per hour. A reminder that torque beats hype when it comes to rolling acceleration. Bold, aggressive fastback styling. One of the last full-size Fords with a 429 NASCAR-inspired roots. Comfortable cruiser with muscle underrated and undervalued. Overshadowed by Mustangs and earlier Cobra jets. Emissions strangled power. Heavy and less nimble, collectors ignored it for years. But that's changing. The 1972 Gran Torino Sport 429 was the last muscle growl before the silence. If you wanted big block power with style in 72, this was Ford's. Number 3, absolutely. The 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429 is a living legend in the muscle car world. Built for NASCAR homologation and disguised as a street Mustang, it was one of the most extreme factory Mustangs ever made. Let's dive into this beast. The baddest Mustang Ford ever built and barely let you buy. In the late 1960s, Ford was dead serious about winning in NASCAR. But to race a new engine in NASCAR, manufacturers had to sell a certain number of street-legal versions to the public. That's called homologation. Ford developed the massive Boss 429 semi-Hemi engine specifically for racing. But here's the twist. Instead of putting it in full-size cars or the Torino, Ford stuffed it into a Mustang fastback, creating a machine so radical it had to be hand-built. This engine was the heart of the beast, spec detailed displacement, 429 cubic inches, 7.0 liters. Horsepower, 375 horsepower at 5,200 revolutions per minute, underrated. Torque, 450 pound-feet at 520 revolutions per minute, 3,400 RPM, compression 10.5 to 1, carburetor Holley 735 CFM, 4-barrel head semi-Hemi aluminum, huge ports block heavy-duty, NASCAR-grade transmission, close ratio, 4-speed top loader, rear end 3.91 to 1 traction lock standard, real output, closer to 500 horsepower easily with tuning. It was a race motor for the street, built tough enough for 7,000 plus RPM. 0 to 60 miles per hour, approximately 5.3 seconds quarter mile. Low 13 seconds at 106 to 108 miles per hour with traction, top speed, approximately 130 to 135 miles per hour weight, approximately 3,870 pounds. Thanks to its massive torque and race heritage, the Boss 429 could haul hard. Though traction was often the limiting factor, the Boss 429 wouldn't even fit in a stock Mustang engine bay. So Ford contracted Carcraft, a specialty builder in Brighton, Michigan, to handle the job. Modified front shock towers and suspension relocated battery to the trunk, stamped special inner fenders, unique hood scoop, massive, manual steering and brakes to save space, oil cooler and reinforced radiator, heavy-duty clutch and cooling. Every Boss 429 was hand-built, and that made it a true factory hot rod. Ford made sure it looked the part. Available only as a fastback sports roof, massive functional hood scoop, subtle Boss 429 badges, Magnum 500 wheels blacked out grille, hood pins, color options, Raven black, Wimbledon white, royal maroon, candy apple red, and black jade. The styling was stealthy but menacing. It didn't scream muscle, but real gearheads knew what it was. Deluxe interior with bucket seats, 8,000 RPM tech. Hurst shifter optional AM/8-track stereo. Functional but not overly fancy. It was built for speed. Year units 1969, 859, 1970 04, 99. Total 1,358. That makes it rarer than a Shelby GT 500 and far more powerful under the skin. Condition value. Show mint 400,000 to 550,000 plus excellent driver. 300,000 to 400,000. Original project 200,000 plus. Because of its NASCAR roots, rarity, and raw power, the Boss 429 is one of the most collectible Mustangs of all time. The Boss 429 engine never saw wide production because it was too expensive and overbuilt for regular street cars. NASCAR versions of the 429 dominated in the hands of Richard Petty and David Pearson, making it legendary on the oval tracks. The 1970 model was slightly refined but kept the same raw spirit. Jay Leno owns one and says it's the Mustang with the biggest motor Ford ever made. The Boss 429 engine was so strong, drag racers and pro stock builders begged Ford to sell crate versions. The Boss 429 wasn't just a muscle car, it was a statement. A snarling, overbuilt brute born for NASCAR but shoved into a Mustang body. It's one of the wildest things Ford ever dared to build, and they only did it for 2 years. Number 2, the 1971 Ford Mustang Boss 351, the last real boss of the first-generation Mustangs and arguably the most underrated muscle Mustang ever built. While the Boss 429 and 302 get more spotlight, the Boss 351 was a balanced street brawler, combining raw power, cornering ability, and serious racing DNA. Let's dive deep. The forgotten boss that could outrun the big boys. The engine, Boss 351 V8. At its heart was the R-Code 351 Cleveland V8, but not just any Cleveland. This version was a high-compression, solid lifter screamer that was unique to the Boss 351. Spec detail, displacement 351 cubic inches, 5.8 liters, horsepower 330 horsepower at 5,400 RPM, SAE gross torque, 370 pound-feet at 4,000 RPM, compression 11:1, heads large port, Cleveland heads same as Boss 302, camshaft mechanical solid lifters, race-oriented carburetor 750 CFM, Autolite 4300D 4-barrel intake, aluminum dual-plane transmission close ratio, 4-speed top-loader rear, axle 3.91:1, traction lock standard oil cooler standard. Despite being only a small block, the Boss 351 engine could easily rev to 6,500 RPM, and with tuning, it was known to make over 375 horsepower. It loved high RPMs, making it a blast to drive hard. The Boss 351 wasn't just a paper tiger. It could outrun many big blocks on the street and strip. 0 to 60 miles per hour, approximately 5.5 seconds quarter mile, approximately 13.8 seconds at 104 miles per hour top speed, approximately 125 miles per hour, weight 3,500 to 3,600 pounds, that made it quicker than a 1971 Mach 142 9CJ in many real-world tests. Hot Rod magazine in 1971 called it the best balanced performance Mustang ever built. Ford wanted the Boss 351 to handle as well as it hauled. That meant serious underpinnings. Front suspension, heavy-duty springs and shocks. Rear competition suspension with staggered shocks. Sway bars thick front and rear, 13/16 and 5/8. Brakes, front disc, rear drum, HD brakes standard. Power steering, optional, manual standard. Tires, F60-15. Goodyear Polyglass GT rims, Magnum 500 wheel standard. This wasn't a floaty muscle boat. It cornered with confidence and control, especially compared to earlier Mustangs. 1971 saw a radical Mustang redesign. Wider, lower, and more aggressive. Boss 351 visual cues included functional blacked-out hood with twist locks, honeycomb grille with sport lamps, Boss 351 callouts on the fenders, and deck lid rear deck spoiler, optional, dual exhaust with chrome tips, black rocker panel stripes, color-keyed racing mirrors. The Boss 351 wasn't flashy like the Mach 1, but it had a menacing, race-ready vibe. High-back bucket seats with comfort weave 8,000 RPM tachometer and 140 miles per hour speedo. Hurst T-handle shifter, optional AM/FM stereo, air conditioning deluxe trim with wood grain accents, fold-down rear seat, optional. It was sporty but refined, built to go fast in comfort. Total Boss 351S built, 1971 only, 1,806. That makes it rarer than Boss 429, 1,358 made total. Boss 302, 7,013 made in 1970 alone. Survivors today? Far fewer. Many were raced, wrecked, or parted out for their high-performance components. Condition value. Mint show $130,000 to $180,000. Excellent driver $90,000 to $130,000. Project restoration $50,000 to $80,000. Rare color or option combos plus 10 to 20%. Because of its low production, high performance, and unique engine, Boss 351Ss are climbing in value rapidly. The Boss 351 engine shared no internal parts with the 351 CJ. It was a unique build. It was quicker in the quarter mile than many big block Mustangs, including 429-powered Mach 1s. Ford never officially raced it, but privateers did, and it won. It was the only Boss Mustang for 1971, as the 302 and 429 were discontinued after 1970. The Boss 351 marked the end of the true performance Mustangs before smog and insurance rules shut it down. The 1971 Boss 351 was Ford's last stand, a true muscle car in a changing world. With a race-ready Cleveland 4.8, razor-sharp handling, and understated aggression, it wasn't just the last Boss. It was arguably the best one to drive. Number 1. Absolutely. The 1969 Ford Torino Tallaladega is one of the coolest and rarest homologation specials ever made. It wasn't built to win hearts at dealerships. It was built for one thing, to dominate NASCAR. And for a while it absolutely did. Let's go deep into this slippery piece of racing history. The NASCAR bullet that Ford snuck onto the streets. Background. Racing was the mission. In 1969, NASCAR was an aero war. Dodge had their Charger 500, and soon the Daytona. Ford needed a weapon. Their answer? The Torino Talladega, named after the new Talladega Superspeedway, wasn't just a modified Torino. It was a factory-built race car in street clothes designed to cheat the wind and win races. To compete in NASCAR, Ford had to build at least 500 street-legal versions. So they did, just enough to qualify, and made sure they were fast and slippery. The Talladega looked like a Torino GT at first glance, but it was heavily massaged for aerodynamics. Extended nose, Front end stretched by 6 inches with a unique sloped grille, flush-mounted front bumper. A smoothed-over rear bumper used in front for better airflow. Welded and smoothed rocker panels. To lower the body on the frame without reducing ground clearance. Recessed grille and headlights, modified fenders and hood for better airflow. All these changes gave the Tallaladega a much lower drag coefficient than a regular Torino, crucial at 200+ miles per hour. Spec detail displacement 428 cubic inches, 7.0 liters. Horsepower 335 horsepower at 5,200 RPM. Underrated. Torque 440 pound-feet at 520 RPM, 3,400 RPM carburetor, 735 CFM Holley 4-barrel compression, 10.5:1, exhaust dual with performance manifolds, transmission C 6 automatic only option, rear end 3.25:1, traction lock Ford 9-inch. Even though the street car didn't get the full race spec Boss 429, that went to the Mercury Cyclone spoiler too. The 428 CJ still made it a seriously quick machine and dead reliable. 0 to 60 miles per hour, approximately 5.8 seconds quarter mile, approximately 14.3 seconds at 100+ miles per hour. Top speed stock, approximately 120 to 130 miles per hour. NASCAR version, yours served 190 to 200+ miles per hour, and the real action was on the oval. In 1969, Ford's Tallaladega, along with the Mercury Cyclone Spoiler 2, was an absolute racing monster. David Pearson, driving a Holman Moody prepared Tallaladega, won the 1969 NASCAR Championship. Ford won 30 of 54 races that year. Domination. The aerodynamic edge helped Ford hold off Dodge's Charger 500 until Dodge retaliated with the Daytona later that year. Ford's Tallaladega was so effective, it literally changed how NASCAR cars were designed. Only 3 paint colors were available: Presidential Blue Royal, Maroon Wimbledon White. Each car came with black bench seat, interior, AM radio power steering, and front disc brakes, column shifter, no console. No flashy trim, all business inside. It was basic, but that kept weight down and focused on performance. Version units, Torino Tallaladega, street cars, 750 pre-production prototypes, approximately 6 NASCAR spec race cars, custom-built, Holman Moody, Wood Brothers, etc. Only 750 Talladegas were ever sold to the public, all built in a 1-month production run at Ford's Atlanta plant. Condition value, show mint $125,000 to $200,000. Excellent driver, $90,000 to $130,000 rare color. Original drivetrain, plus 20%. Because of their rarity and racing history, these cars are highly collectible, especially with matching numbers. The Talladega's flush bumper was actually the rear bumper from a Ford Fairlane, flipped and mounted on the front. The car had a lower body drop than a normal Torino for better handling. A very rare move for the time. Talladega's aerodynamic bodywork was so good, it pressured NASCAR to start banning extreme aero cars by 1971. Ford never officially built a Boss 429 Tallaladega, but several clones and customs exist. Only one prototype, Boss 429 powered Tallaladega, was built by Holman Moody for Ford execs, and it's in a museum. The 1969 Torino Tallaladega is one of the sneakiest muscle cars ever made. It looks like a big coupe, but it's actually a hand-built NASCAR missile in disguise. Built to cheat the wind and crush the competition, it's a Ford legend that still flies under most radars.